welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest of what's going on in the sporting world. Mitch, it's good to have you back this week.
Good to be back in a little different time we're recording too. We get to recap all the high school football playoff games, World Series, and preview football the day it's happening for the Buckeyes and the day before for the.
Yeah, we don't typically do Saturday shoots, but we have one today, and we're getting you guys your fill of the latest of what's going on in sports. I mean, before we go into that, obviously, you can check us out here on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and BigTimeSportsOhio.com. We got a bunch of stuff going on there, and of course, our Facebook and Twitter pages, everywhere you can find Big Time Sports or me or Mitch. So we want to start off by the game we were at last night. We were over in Hartville. I always get Uniontown and Hartville kind of mixed up, but we were in Hartville last night for the opening round matchup between Lake and I'm blanking on the other team here, Perry, excuse me. A game in which it seemed as if that the start was going to be a surprising one because these two teams already played earlier in the season, Mitch. Lake defeated Perry in kind of convincing fashion just 2 weeks ago, but obviously with the playoffs, things can change. And with this start of the game, it looked as if Hoover might have an upper hand, but then eventually things started to unravel. There was a couple of big turnovers, and the Blue Streaks did what they had to do to pull off not only an in-conference win, but a postseason win to get to the next round.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Perry got the ball first last night, Mitch. They went 10 or 12 plays, 80 yards scoring the opening drive, and let's be honest here, it was not typical Perry offensive fashion. There were some pass plays. This is a team, Mitch, that we are accustomed to. And obviously credit goes to former head coach Keith Wakefield. Now Zach Slate's there, who's, trying to remain the same at Perry in terms of the offensive style they go with, which is the wing T. But they threw the ball around last night. I think it may have caught Lake off guard at the start. At the same time, Perry came out knowing, hey, we have nothing else. This is a team we're familiar with. And this is a team that embarrassed us just 2 weeks ago. They took that probably to heart a little bit, and they came out, they threw the first punch. Lake fought back, but not before Perry had an interception at the goal line. I mean, it looked for the most part, Mitch, like Perry had a game plan. They knew what they wanted to do offensively and defensively, and it helped them in that first half. Then the second half started, and Lake figured it out. There's articles everywhere, obviously, and the Canton rep, Josh Weir, was there last night, and the lead article is, in quotes, "It's time to go, man." And head coach Dan DeGeorge at halftime last night said they challenged their guys in the halftime locker room because, Mitch, this is a team that had a very bad loss. And it's no slight at Green the week before, but in terms of what Lake had done this season, and then Lake having -1 total yards of offense at halftime just a week ago at Green, they were asleep for 6 quarters. That 4-quarter game at Green in the first half against Perry, and they woke up in the second half, and Mitch, they really made it not close whatsoever. And it's because of one player, Nate Baker. He was our iCryle player of the game last night on the Big Time Sports Game of the Week, 201 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. The fascinating part here, Mitch, and I don't think people remember, and it's okay if they don't because it's a new year of high school football. This is somebody that was a wide receiver last year for Lake, and now he is their lead running back, and he is a damn good one. He has been able to keep Lake in so many games this year. You look at him, you think, okay, he's not a big bruisey running back, but man, oh man, can he take hits and bounce off defenders and keep going and keep those legs churning? Nate Baker in the second half last night was monumental in Lake getting back to the ways in which they play. Even though Perry opened up the game throwing the ball a little bit, we know it's not a team equipped to throw the ball a lot. So being down 7 is one thing. But as soon as it was 28-7, Mitch, it was a whole nother ball game. You really sense that, okay, Perry is going to have to play perfect rest of the game. But at that point, it was already the 4th quarter. So it was a very good win for Lake. They will now host Sunbury Big Walnut, I believe, next week in the next rounds of playoffs. And the defense woke up too, Mitch. The defense that for all season long, I had been telling you, I've told others, and I've said on the podcast, I thought Lake's had the best defense all around. Found something in that film they watched. But then at halftime, whatever that message was from Coach DeGeorge, besides just "it's time to go, man," it resonated with those players. And this is a team, Mitch, although they lost a lot of players from last year's squad, This is a team that went deep in the playoffs last year, and they returned some key starters, especially a lot of them on the defensive side. So getting that first win out of the way, and call me crazy, it might be one of the tougher ones because it's a familiar opponent, a Federal League opponent. I really like what Lake showed us last night, because they showed you there's flaws, but they showed you, hey, when we turn it on and can play the style we want to play, they're going to be a hard out in the playoffs.
Baker had 201 rushing yards, 2 of his 3 touchdowns in the second half. The one on a 50 some yarder, I believe, was the one that really iced the game for Lake, especially after Perry had gone down and gotten a touchdown to make it a 1-score game at 21-14. You mentioned some of the flaws in that game. The quarterback play was not great for Lake. I mean, Cale Jarvis and Noah Kabaski both combined for 6 of 19 passing for 89 yards. But Kabaski had a 12-yard touchdown run, I believe, just after halftime in Lake's first drive to give the Blue Streaks the lead for good. Austin Maddox left the game with an injury briefly during the second quarter, but came back for Perry. He was 10 of 15 for 138 yards. The top player for Perry, that the Panthers that night, was Christian Avanek, who had a big, I think the first touchdown of the game. He also had leads in receiving yards, 100, and rushing yards, 50, while tying Van Reerden for the team lead in total tackles, 8. So Lake will move on to face, as you mentioned, the Golden Eagles. They upset 5th seed Columbus Northland last night, 43-14, which is a very interesting matchup, like for a 5 versus 12 game. Very interesting result that I'm sure is going to lead to a test for the Blue Streaks. Before we get into the rest of the Stark matchups, we also had last night's game over in Sugar Creek on Big Time Sports, where it's about what I expected. Garaway, the top seed in the Region 23 playoffs, opening with a 45-7 win over Rock Hill on Friday night. They had to come over from Ironton, traveled about 3.5 hours to the Amish country, and they got a helping of running back Dylan Sunland, who had 3 touchdowns, like Baker, on the game, 103 rushing yards and just 9 carries. So it wasn't like he was just running crazy all over the field. He also surpassed 1,000 rushing yards for this season, while Jensen Garber broke a couple of marks last night for the Pirates. He had his 100th reception of the year. He surpassed 1,000 receiving yards on the season, and he tied a single season record with his 14th touchdown catch, one of 2 thrown by Brady Geibel for Garaway. Ethan Kimball also had a pick 6 in the third quarter. The Pirates were well up by then. They will play number 9 East Knox this coming Friday in Sugar Creek after the Bulldogs beat number 8 Martins Ferry 35-17 on Friday night. Now, going back over to Stark County, a number of good matchups in there. Most of the local teams coming out with victories, but a couple of teams here also having the ball dropped. I mean, unfortunately for you, your alma mater, Jackson, suffering the brunt of that unfortunate injury to Lucas Eckerman last week, having a tough go in their first round game.
Yeah, look, in the playoffs, Mitch, it's always going to be hard. But when you're down your starting quarterback who had led you for the first 9 weeks and then the first half in your week 10 game, him going down, never going to be easy, especially going on the road to take on a team like Berea Mid-Park. And Jackson had that lead early, but they just couldn't hang on. Berea Mid-Park 41, Jackson 26, the final score there. Quarterback Danny Bowser had 4 touchdowns for the Titans of Berea Mid-Park, and that was really all they needed. It was Jackson was up against a lot there. I mean, you never want to see somebody get hurt. You never want to see your starting quarterback go down, but for it to be now when it happens, I mean, that just leaves you absolutely zero room for error, to where if it happens mid-season, that quarterback gets some work, maybe gets a little more comfortable. It was a tough situation, but outside of that, Mitch, only 2 Federal League schools lost last night. It was Jackson, and then obviously one was going to lose between Perry and Lake.
Right.
And it was Perry losing. So 5 of the 7 teams in the Federal League last night winning and advancing. McKinley had a very impressive win over Strongsville last night. What was that? The final there, you had a 37-13. Keith Quincy, big time plays last night, a 68-yard touchdown on a catch from Keaton Rowe, and then a 62-yard touchdown interception in the third quarter that blew McKinley's lead up to 29-7. That was about all she wrote there. You look at Hoover, they were up 20-7 with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they were losing the fourth quarter. They ended up kicking a walk-off game-winning field goal to advance. But then Green handled business last night, which means now I can officially promise you there will be at least 1 Federal League school into the next round of the playoffs after next weekend, because now Hoover will travel to Green next week in a Federal League showdown in the second round of the Ohio High School football playoffs, which, Mitch, that's going to be a blast. Green lost against McKinley earlier this year. We know what Hoover has in Carson Derlin. Like, this could be a very entertaining matchup. Glen Oak got off to a slow start. They were down 7-0. They come back and they win last night. Strong showing for the Eagles. One of the Burt brothers who was fighting through illness really performed and showed them like, hey, I'm not 100%, but I'm going to give you everything I have. And I think that's a big time message from a player at this level. And also, I also think we just got to give head coach Scott Garcia a ton of credit. This is a team that, with how their season started, I think they won week 1. They lost the next, we know they lost week 2 against Massillon, and they dropped a couple. But Mitch, this is a team that rattled off a number of wins, being able to host a first round playoff game. They go 6-4 in the regular season. Now they win their first round playoff game. And Glen Oak, I think, has been very undercovered in a certain sense, because they've had a very, very good season so far. And here they are moving on to the next round of the playoffs, and they undoubtedly deserve some credit. Massillon wasn't really a game, 41-6 over Central Crossing last night. Green, I mentioned, they won 44-14 over Columbus St. Charles in Division II, Region 7. Hoover beat Columbus DeSales 23-21, that walk-off field goal last night. Alliance, another team, they got blitzed very quick. Maybe crossing your area. Sandy Valley with a very impressive win last night over Cortland Lakeview. And then also still undefeated. They won again last night, 35-7, I believe was the final score. 11-0. These Wildcats, Mitch, I don't want to be in the way of them right now with how they're playing, and Poochie Snyder at quarterback. The Canton South Wildcats are looking like a tough out in the playoffs. And I would not want to be a team that matches up against them. That's for sure.
I believe that was their second consecutive win over Northwest, because they beat them in week 10 as well. And then they match up in the playoffs. It sometimes happens, but yeah, Paul Koskovich, by the way, made that field goal for the Vikings as they moved on against a DeSales team that was led by freshman quarterback RJ Day, the son of Ohio State football head coach Ryan Day, who we may talk about later on. But yeah, you mentioned
here, since you mentioned that, the team that Lake plays next week, Sunbury Big Walnut, Cade Stover, Ohio State tight end's younger brother, is on that team. So he will be in Uniontown next week.
It's all connected. We mentioned some of the other games there, because some of the EBC teams losing as well. Aurora handled business against Alliance, I think you mentioned, 41-7. Carrollton also dropped the ball in their game, 42-0 against Steubenville. You mentioned, I think, South Range, the defending state champions, started off their returning run against Fairless, the 15th seed, 43-20. So that's most of the start games there as well. We mentioned a couple of other matchups here in Tuscarawas County. You mentioned Sandy Valley. They were tied at 21 at one point against Lakeview. It was a high scoring game early on, and then Sandy Valley broke through for a couple of big touchdowns. They were able to win their first round matchup. Newcomerstown had a big win over Grandview Heights, 17-14. So the Trojans get a playoff win and they'll move on. We also had Indian Valley knocking off Logan Elm. Both are the Braves, but Indian Valley won 48-14. Fort Fry ended Tusky Valley season 35-21, while Malvern got a 35-20 win over Southern Local. And then West Holmes, just this score, 70-50 over Bryan, which is unbelievable, even for a high scoring offense like we've seen from West Holmes. But two of our most well-known teams in the area both fell last night. Dover lost to Kenston 34-7, and the Quakers got boat raced by Ursuline 42-7. I wondered if the Quaker defense could keep them in there, but alas, the Quakers were the last seed to get in last week in their respective division, and the Fighting Irish just brought it to them offensively. So, a couple teams still remaining from Tuscarawas County, but, Garaway is going to be the team that everyone's going to be reckoning with, especially with the way that they started off here in the playoffs, having these two back-to-back unbeaten seasons. It's going to be interesting to see where the Pirates go from here. Some other tournament stuff that I caught my eye earlier on was stuff regarding other sports here in the area. I saw that Central Volleyball won their second straight district title this past week in Division 4. They had a victory over Wellsville in 3 sets. So the Crusaders will face McDonald at the regional semifinals this coming November 2nd at Strongsville High School this coming week. So look out for that. A number of games here. We saw a couple of teams in the area lose in girls soccer. Jackson fell in the district finals to Walsh Jesuit. Green lost to Menor in the Division One Northeast 2 district finals. Alliance, though, still alive, beating Kenston 2-0 in the Division 2 Northeast 2 district finals. So they'll move on to the regionals. Jackson knocking off Perry in the district finals. So the volleyball team still going strong for the Polar Bears.
Yeah, and Perry really in that match, Mitch, Perry really played Jackson tough. All sets were pretty close. Perry even stealing a set, which is not something Jackson is used to for the most part. So Perry really held their own and made Jackson work for that district championship in the volleyball match. So now, though, Jackson does advance once again to the regional round. And so we will see how that plays out. And we'll also be able to see how some of these other teams from Stark County do moving forward in their respective sports.
Meanwhile, on the boys' side, Hoover beat Kent Roosevelt 2-0 in the Division I Northeast 2 district semifinals. So the Viking boys remain in the hunt. A couple other teams here as well, but we'll get to those later on throughout the week. I mean, hey, Stark County, it's your friends from the local Board of Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we have a challenge for you. We're asking you to create a new habit and check in on someone every day. Nothing fancy, just a simple text, phone call, or note on social media to ask someone how they're doing. You don't have to be a professional, you just have to ask and then listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Text 4HOPE to 741-741 anytime, day or night, or dial 988. Brought to you by Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going. Disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
We'll go on now to, we have a number of things to talk about here. We can talk about the World Series. We can talk about what's happening today in college football. I say we start at college football and then go from there, because we have a long wait until the matchup tonight between Ohio State and Wisconsin. This night game, which last week should have been a night game. This week, I think you could have had it not being. It's always, for some reason, when it's in Wisconsin, we're always playing them at night. I never understand that. I don't get it. I don't know if it's the time difference. I don't know if it's just something about Wisconsin Stadium that people love to have shoot in prime time. But either way, Ohio State got a big boost after their win last week against Penn State, proved that defense is still solid. They're going to get a couple of guys back this week. I believe Trevion Henderson's expected to play. I believe Emeka Ibuka is still questionable, I believe, but he should still be in there as well. Then a couple of guys also in that mix. This seems like more so than last week, a game that Ohio State won kind of convincingly, that you should win. So why am I feeling and hearing so much about this becoming a trap game, even more so than what last week was?
Because it's at night, because it's a primetime matchup, because Ohio State has won here before in our lifetime and lost big time games where they should have handled business. I still remember the year Terrell Pryor was quarterback and they went up to Camp Randall and they did not get out of there safely. I believe we were number 1 at the time.
Lost to Russell Wilson.
Yep. And that's it's a tough place to play. I mean, they did the jump around after the third quarter. I still remember that because I thought it was cool when I was younger. And then I remember Ohio State doing it to Wisconsin in Columbus a few years ago and Wisconsin saying how disrespectful it was. Well, if it was disrespectful, then win. That game, I mean, not today. Please don't win today. I think it's because this is a great spot for a letdown game, right? They handled their business last week against Penn State. The offense did its job. You had to get the ball into Marvin Harrison's hands, which they did. But the defense, Mitch, to me, is still not getting the credit it deserves. We have been so accustomed over the past number of years between Urban Meyer and Ryan Day as head coach and the quarterbacks we have been lucky to have that we are just always expecting amazing performances, Heisman-like performances, Heisman moments from these quarterbacks, right? Haven't really got it yet this year outside of what I would say the final drive to beat Notre Dame from Kyle McCord. This is a spot after a big time emotional win last week that you could maybe see a letdown coming, but the way the defense is playing, I have a hard time thinking that Wisconsin's going to be able to put up enough points tonight to hold Ohio State in check. I would be stunned if they do. I think the only way that this game gets out of hand is if the offense is so bad that the defense for Wisconsin is able to score sometimes or put them in great field position to where if they go 3 and out, they're still in field goal range. We'll have to wait and see, right? I mean, we're going to be sitting around all day watching other games, probably watching a few teams get upset, some really good matchups today, like Oregon, Utah at 3:30 today.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of time for us to overthink a lot of things where Ohio State could come out tonight and really steamroll Wisconsin or just get a really close win, which at the end of the day, Mitch, with what Ohio State's done so far, they've had 2 ranked wins on the road at Notre Dame, at home against Penn State. You're going to have another opportunity against a ranked opponent when you play Michigan. Just win. This is not an easy place to play. Yes, style points count, as we know with college football playoff committee and the rankings and everything. But at the same time, if Ohio State handles their business from here on out, we know they are going to be in the college football playoff, and that is the ultimate goal.
I did not know this. That game you mentioned, which Ohio State got taken down in Wisconsin against Russell Wilson, is the last time Wisconsin has won against Ohio State. They've lost 9 straight since then. So then with this win, if Ohio State gets it, then I can breathe a little easier. Next week's not going to be easier either because I believe it's a road game against Rutgers, who is not, they're not ranked, but they're 6-2 right now. They're not bad. By the way, Wisconsin's playing for something right now. We saw them win last week, and with Iowa losing to Minnesota on that unbelievable turn of events, gosh. I mean, they made the right call. It just it's so frustrating to see that happen in that time, and yeah, just to see what happened with Iowa have that happen to them again. Anyway, but Wisconsin won last week, so they're now leading the Big Ten West. And I'll be honest with you, I'd rather play Iowa in the Big Ten championship than I would Wisconsin again. That's just my thing. But Ohio State, if they win this game, they'll play Rutgers. They'll kind of have a challenge, and then they'll have back-to-back softy games against Michigan State and Minnesota. And then the big one against a team that somehow we have not gotten to talking about. So let's talk about this nonsense. This is so stupid. It's stupid for one school. It's not stupid for every other school because this Michigan, this thing that's been going on with the cheat. I'd be careful with the word cheating because I understand this is in a system of college football in which other teams are likely doing this. Our own team may likely be doing this. We don't know. But to push it so far to the point where this Stallions gets caught, and in the way they're getting caught and the way the details are coming out right now, it's more so, how could you have done this and disgrace college football? It's more so, how could Michigan do this after talking so much, after touting themselves up for years as the school that does it the right way, the school that does it, by the book. They're just as scummy as the other scandal-ridden schools. You're just as a scumbags as the rest of us. Don't miss me with every single part of your soapbox talk. I'm not hanging on anymore. Jim Harbaugh is going to be back in the NFL within 2 years. I'm calling it right now. I don't know which team he's going to, but that man is not going to be at Michigan for very longer. And it may be because scandal is going to lead to some consequences for the school, but I think we're towards the end of his tenure here. Unless there's some major turnaround and everyone's like, no, Michigan was actually not doing anything wrong the whole time. Whatever.
I think he's going to be back in the NFL next year. I don't know. I mean, Mitch, the reports that are coming out, and it's more day by day. I don't know how they survive this, because every day it looks like there's more incriminating evidence out that shows that Michigan was doing this. And look, there very well might be other teams that are doing it too. I'm going to agree with you. I'm not going to sit here and say they're the only team doing it, but it is a rule that you cannot do what Michigan was doing, because not every program in the country is able to do what Michigan was doing. You have to create a level playing field. And this is a way you could do it, because some staffs are bigger. Some staffs obviously make more money in revenue. They are able to do this, but you can also still steal signs from watching film. But sending people to games, buckets on each side of the stadium to switch at halftime to be able to film both sides because you play both teams. And then for Harbaugh, after there's pretty solid evidence in the database for Michigan to say that he did not direct and denied directing any staff member to conduct off-campus scouting and denying any knowledge of this. Come on, man. Come on. What, you think you don't know what your coaches are doing? You don't know that your coach, do you think your coach is just going on a lot of vacations that you're also paying? Something doesn't add up here. And yes, obviously you're going to plead ignorance. You're going to say, no, I didn't do this, because you're trying to save your tail now too. But at the end of the day, my biggest issue with this outside of Michigan has kind of been, why did this take so long? Because now the reports are out there that Ohio State tipped off TCU, as did other Big Ten schools last year before the college football playoff semifinal, of, hey, Michigan stealing signs. Now, why are we waiting till now? Is it because teams didn't want to seem like sore losers and do this? Maybe, but at the same time, it's kind of making sense. When you look back to the games Michigan's lost recently in the past couple of years, TCU beats them 51-45 last year.
Right.
Well, TCU installed dummy signals and Michigan could not figure it out. Now, there were times they could still figure through it. I mean, there was the article that came out from the Washington Post that said there were still times they stopped TCU and they interviewed TCU coaches about it. But when they couldn't get somebody down there to scout Georgia 2 years ago, Mitch, what happened in the college football semifinal against Georgia?
No, it didn't work out well. No,
because they couldn't get down there in time. And now last year they were there against Ohio State and Georgia because they wanted to be able to steal signs for whoever they would play in the national championship. Why did it take so long? I don't know. We probably won't know, but obviously the more that comes out every day, Mitch, it looks like there are a lot of schools that have the evidence to prove that, hey, Michigan's up to something here. And just what was the final straw? What tipped off a team enough to be able to call the NCAA to now where the FBI is involved too, Mitch? Like, this is not just an NCAA issue. The FBI is involved because there's now reports that Michigan was hacking cloud servers for opponents and getting their play calls from there, which that is illegal. Like, that is 100% illegal. You can't even do that as a person, to hack into someone else's server and not get in trouble for that. All this stuff was on databases and hard drives of computers at the University of Michigan for coaches. This, to me, depending how long it's been going on, you have to let the investigation play out. There's a lot of people that say there's not going to be a punishment named in time because the NCAA has to do this. And let's remember this.
Right.
The Big Ten can impose sanctions and bans, whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. They don't have to wait for the NCAA. The NCAA can do the same thing as well. They don't have to wait for the Big Ten. The College Football Playoff Committee can literally say, oh, you guys are giving them a postseason ban? That's fine. They're still one of the best teams. Come on over to the College Football Playoff, because it's not NCAA sanctioned.
Right.
There is a way. I would have a hard time believing the College Football Playoff Committee would do it, because it would kind of say, hey, they're still the best team, even if they are cheating, to where they would still take them if the NCAA came out next week and said, hey, no, we have all this evidence, this, Michigan is done. It's still not out of the possibility, though, Mitch, that they go to the college football playoff this year because it's not an NCAA sanctioned event. And that's mind boggling to me. I would think that what the details we have so far, this is, and very well could be the biggest cheating scandal we've seen, trumping the Astros and the cheating scandal they had. The only thing you have to hope now, unless you're a Michigan fan, of course, is that they don't get the same punishment as the Houston Astros, which was no punishment. And so I don't think that that can happen because you have the FBI involved, because this is sort of a legal matter now too. I think that there will be sanctions, bans, whether they revoke wins, which cool. Their 2 wins wouldn't count, but we watched the game. They beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. I hate the whole revoking wins, like the year Tressel had. And took all
especially when those wins can be reinstated later if the schools are on like really good behavior. Like we've seen that with Paterno and I think Tressel, and it's so dumb.
It's this. We watched it happen. We watched the games happen. We know who won and who lost.
We watched Reggie Bush win the. We watched Reggie Bush win the Heisman. We saw it. You know.
Nope, they took it away. He never won that Heisman. So if you saw it, erase it for like that. To me, that's so stupid.
And if you're going to
something that's going to hurt them.
And if you're going to get rid of it, take it from him, give it to the guy who would have won it. Give it to. I don't care. The NCAA enforcement is going to be tough though because they haven't really been like. The NCAA used to be like they used to come down hard on like somebody getting a free getting $20 from their grandparent or something like that. Now it's like, oh, Baylor has this sexual assault scandal, and it's like, you know. But Michigan, who knows what's going to happen with them? It's really just more so. I think the worst Harbaugh will face is failing what's called the Head Coach Responsibility Act. It's a policy where the NCAA says that anything that happens within a program, a football program, can be tied to the head coach as supervisor, but it's common knowledge in the industry that Harbaugh is, this is from the Washington Post, that he's well lawyered and perpetually on the cusp of an NFL return. By the way, this perspective by Stephen Godfrey of the Post has so many just epic bars against the University of Michigan. And from what it sounds, he might be a Michigan fan. I'm not sure, but some of the things he says about the school, not scathing, but they're just like so well written that I feel like you have to read them. He even brings up the quote that Harbaugh said, "It's hard to beat the cheaters," when we was talking about recruiting in the SEC. And it's like, buddy, this is not it. And they're on their bye week. This is not even them going into a game. This is like losing the bye week, as you like to bring up here from time to time,
and
which, you know,
also keep in mind that Harbaugh's still under investigation for recruiting violations too. So that brings up the fact that the NCAA accidentally stumbled across this while they were investigating Harbaugh for other matters too. Either way, Mitch, these are 2 big violations that are up against Michigan and Harbaugh right now. I don't see a way in which they get out of both these. I don't. And if they do, there better be substantial evidence. And I'm saying that as an Ohio State fan, yes, with my Ohio State hat on, my shirt that says "Real Men Wear Scarlet and Gray." Death penalty for Michigan football or all their sports. Actually, all their sports, every single part of it.
Sports Illustrated, next Sports Illustrated comes out, why the University of Michigan should drop football. I mean, that's the death penalty will never, not even SMU could pull that off because they brought him back eventually. But yeah, that's the most interesting thing going into this week, because other than Ohio State, like the only top 25 matchup we have is that Pac-12 game, which is essentially fighting for second place. And the only shot that the Pac-12 has left beyond Washington for a college football playoff. Whoever loses this game between Oregon and Utah is out. They're done. Yeah. USC's done. Everyone else is done. Whoever loses this game is done. And then they'll have Washington versus winner of this game in the Pac-12 championship, most likely. So there's that. And it is now time for another segment of Fuel, Move, Recover, featuring Dr. Michele Iono, physical therapist and president of Advancing Athletics. Thanks so much for taking the time, Michele.
Thanks, Mitch.
So for today's topic, I wanted to go into not just the physical toll of injuries to student athletes, but also the potential mental effects of them as well. I mean, we kind of talked about this off the air, but what is it about when an athlete gets injured, but particularly those who are young, to where you can see not only the physical effects of it, you know, people have like, whether it's a twisted knee or a broken arm or anything, you know, better or worse. what do you see as the more mental effects of but those potential injuries?
Well, first, let me say that, or remind everybody that this is not medical advice, and we're having a conversation about some things that can happen, might happen, and have happened. If you need resources for, mental health services, reach out to all the normal people that I say, your either coaches or athletic trainers, or, me, if you don't have any other of those resources. There's a lot of good resources online as well. It's so funny because I don't know if you've seen, Akron Children's Hospital, they have great TV commercials. They talk about, they show individual cases of people having ailments or issues, and then, their services can help them physically get back into it. And then there's one more recently, I haven't been able to find it online, but it talks about how, sports is only accounts for like 8% of a child's life, but this is where they get their self-esteem and information about teamwork and resilience and all these other kind of things. So that should highlight the importance of sports for things other than just like physical skill development and whatnot. And as a part of that, as you were saying, what makes this so difficult is just the fact that, we take this away from athletes, from young people, and because of so much of their self-esteem, because of so much of their sense of belonging comes from sports, when all of a sudden you don't have that, it's really difficult to kind of get those good feels, so to speak, from the thing that you love, the thing that you like, your social time and whatnot, while you're injured, or seeing it as being the same thing when you are injured. And sometimes you do feel isolated. You do feel, like you're not a part of the team. So it can get pretty heavy and really weigh on individuals who go through injuries. And of course, kiddos are really susceptible to this stuff because they haven't been on the planet for long enough to be able to understand that things will pass, things often get better, and that, resources are there to kind of aid you. Kind of like thinking about how, relationships that end in high school, college, as a young adult are really difficult because, you like that person so much, and you don't kind of appreciate that people grow apart, or maybe this wasn't the right person for you or whatnot. So, all those things kind of combine how we take, to make, a difficult circumstance, for things, overcoming things that are like physical, like injuries.
When we were going into this discussion, a big Kickstarter of that was this one research publication by the British Journal of Sports Medicine. It is titled "The Psychological Response to Injury in Student Athletes, a Narrative Review with a Focus on Mental Health," as I pull it up there. Now, one of the conclusions that were made during this study, as I pull it up here towards the end, was that injury is a stressor that has physical as well as psychological responses, and that the psychological response to injury is important. And although emotional responses to injury are common, problematic responses can be those that are persistent, worsen, or appear excessive. Now, kind of going back to what we were talking about, the psychological effects of these sort of injuries. I mean, what have you seen in the past where it's emotionally responsive for these kids? Like, where do you see when a student athlete gets injured, when they're recovering from injury? What can that take on them emotionally?
First, that was a great find by you, Mitch, finding that article. You should have found, Mitch doesn't do this kind of stuff for a living, and he was able to get through the whole article. I don't think it was that it had a lot of straightforward language in it. I don't think it was like super technical. So I think anybody who is interested in reading this can give you some some insight into like how some of these things kind of combine. So whether it's this article, which kind of gives an overview of like what we know or think about, or, you know, using other resources, it's important to remember that, you know, you have a stress response in your body to whenever you're injured. And just like any of us, any of the listeners or viewers, like if you guys think about how you can get irritable and, you know, and be in somewhat a bad mood when you get stressed, that stress response can come from like, you know, being injured, the actual physical parts of it, the biological parts of it, and then also the way it makes you feel. These are things that, you know, we want to kind of keep an eye out for our athletes. You know, if the first things that typically happen are, you know, changes in sleeping, eating habits, and mood as well. And this is understandable. Like negative emotions are normal. So it's okay to allow, you know, individuals, including kids, to kind of process their feelings. Where things start to become a problem is when, kind of like, as you were saying, these things kind of deepen or worsen or become excessive. So, you know, changes in eating, sleeping, and your mood can then become like changes in your eating that can be defined as disordered eating. So not that you quite yet have a eating disorder, but that you're making food choices because of skewed rationale. So, you know, like you think you're getting fat, or you think that, like, you know, you got hurt because you don't have enough muscle. So then you know, stop eating, you know, a well-balanced diet, or maybe, you know, you start overeating, and because of the emotional response that might come with it, then this, like, you know, your mood going from being upset that you got hurt or upset that you're missing action, and then you move into just being sad overall, not like not just about your injury, but like about life in and of itself, and start to become depressed, and that you can't laugh, you can't enjoy the things that are going well in your life that are independent of your participation in sports or whatever. And then the other thing is like lack of motivation. You know, there's more things in that article that were that we discussed, lists a number of things to look out for. But then the last one I wanted to mention was, you know, lack of motivation. So then you don't want to do stuff, and, you know, you don't want to go out with friends or do your schoolwork or go to practice, participate, go to weightlifting, whatever. And then obviously the like really problematic things is, you know, from you start turning into somebody who's angry or rageful. You know, you have emotional outbursts, crying, and fear avoidance, where, you know, or what we call pain behaviors, in that you start deciding, you know, I don't want to do that because that might hurt. You know, you start projecting things that are problems before you actually know that they're problems. And then, of course, the thing that's hard to talk about is substance abuse. So all of a sudden, whether it's becoming reliant on, you know, like Advil or Tylenol or something, where, you know, you're not actually addicted to the substance itself, but you're so concerned with the issue that you're just kind of taking this, you know, almost like preventatively, instead of allowing your body to kind of tell you when it needs help. And then, of course, like, you know, stronger substances as well, whether it's, you know, for pain management or what we call self-medication, you know, like things like alcohol and whatnot. So it's, you know, it's okay to, you know, feel crappy about this, you know, almost life-changing thing, even if it's just temporary. It's okay for some of these things for you to be, you know, upset and have trouble sleeping because of it. But then these other things that kind of come along with it, you know, those things should all kind of get better as you start to kind of process, you know, what you're going through. And of course, you should start then rehabbing whatever is wrong. And then, like, okay, I've got a plan now, and like we'll try to move forward.
Kind of going back to something you had mentioned earlier in that last answer, where negative emotions are normal, pretty practically. Because of that, and I've experienced this as well, it can be very difficult to process when help is needed, particularly psychologically. I mean, we talk about how it can be kind of difficult for kids to like really know what the problem is, to identify it, to be able to share with somebody. I mean, what are some of the other big factors that might go into the struggle of somebody recognizing like, I need to get my mind right?
You can recognize them, in yourself. Again, it's harder for kids because they don't know the difference between a really good mood and a really bad mood.
Sure.
Because they haven't had just they haven't been alive long enough. But there's a few different things that we can kind of talk about it here. And I think the important thing is when we start to see when this one thing, so like you get injured, you can't play with your team,
right?
But then you start like not wanting to do your homework, not wanting to do the like normal social things that you always did, hang out with friends, or you're kind of despondent and whatnot. So when we start to see that the actions of one of these individuals are changing in that way, that's when it's time to like start to encourage them as a friend or an adult, or as a parent, to seek out some of these other services to help learning how to deal with this. And the same way that somebody comes to me as a physical therapist, I'm giving you tools and guidance on how to take care of yourself physically, like don't move your leg like that, or like your shoulder like needs to go this way and instead of this other way. And then let's strengthen those muscles so that it can go the better way more easily, and it's harder for your body to go the bad way. We start kind of building and building and building, and then we're also teaching you patterns so that you don't aggravate the injury, or that you don't have the injury in the future. We don't think about our minds that same way. Whereas if we were to think of it more as like, hey, these are tools that can kind of help me deal with stuff, it'll be much easier for us to kind of process and understand what you're feeling, recognize what you're feeling. Oh, okay, I'm experiencing this thing. I've learned how to, my counselor, my mental health therapist has given me the tools to be able to understand and then address these really strong emotions I have, because then you have these strong emotions about what you're going through, and then that starts to influence your actions, and that's where things become problematic. And so why don't we get more help? Well, it seems that that stigma is the most important thing, which has been backed up by some research. They've looked at like some elite athletes, like young adults, and they've listed off a whole bunch of characteristics and like, hey, why wouldn't you seek, or why don't you seek services when you need them? And stigma was shown to be the biggest thing, along with a lack of mental health literacy. So that's kind of like what I just got done explaining, like, oh, like, there's a stigma that, this is for crazy people, or that you're broken mentally and normal people shouldn't have to do this. And really, that's not true. It's that some people figure out these tools on their own, but it's kind of like how, I've talked about before, how physical therapists, we want us to be viewed as dentists, in that, you love going to the dentist and getting a clean bill of health from them. You love paying them to tell them you're doing great. But we don't think about physical therapy like that. And we certainly don't think of mental health therapy, where we're kind of checking in and just making sure, okay, these are the things I'm trying to do. Do you think, can you give me some feedback on how effective they are? And then the final thing is that, you know, having a negative past experience, you know, like, oh, that doesn't work for me. Or, you know, like people struggle to, you know, always understand that, oh, I was just in a bad place, or I wasn't open to like getting the help. And so, you know, there's all these cultural factors that influence why people are open to getting help or open about their issues because of the stigmas or whatnot. And so in encouraging athletes that about the benefits is really important, as well as, you know, giving them access to the resources themselves.
So let's say somebody is able to kind of recognize the issue and wants to get help in this sort of scenario. I mean, what steps should they take and what impact may they see by this sort of help?
Well, the biggest thing is learning how to kind of come back and be able to process those really strong emotions. Again, it's like like feelings aren't facts. And it's important to kind of understand that, so that you don't just like create your own reality, or, you know, almost like gaslight yourself. You start questioning your own sanity because, you know, you don't know how to deal with this. You think that you're special in a bad way. There's something wrong with you. That's why you have these problems. The complexity of these issues, you know, kind of combine and cause people to like feel worse or think that things are worse than what they are. So by getting the help that you need, you're able to kind of overcome, you know, or deal with these really strong emotions, rather than these emotions being like, okay, that's it. These emotions are telling me like reality, instead of saying, no, these are just a part of the process. And, you know, and having all these, going through all the motions, so to speak, regarding, you know, dealing with the injury, dealing with how it affects you mentally, dealing with some of the changes that occur socially. You know, you're maybe not even going to practice now, whatever. Maybe your teammates, you know, are judging you, making you feel like you're not being honest about the injury, or maybe they don't think that, but you think that they think that. So it's learning how to deal with all of these emotions that can kind of come along with, you know, these very real experiences, that it's not like you're just making these things up. Like you did have an injury, and then it is leading to all these things. And then on top of that, as I said before, it's kind of equipping athletes and individuals with the skills to be able to deal with this stuff, or maybe smaller versions, or maybe even worse versions of this in the future. And, you know, they talked about in that article another study of almost 1,000 athletes showing that self-determination, theory, autonomy, competence, and relatedness are the most important factors for, you know, having positive outcomes. So essentially it's like self-determination is like, I can control my own like well-being. Like if I, you know, think happy thoughts, then I will be happy. If I work hard at the recovering from this, then I will get better. I'm not dependent on substances. I'm not dependent on other people like therapists, like somebody like me from the physical side. Like I'm just giving that injured athlete, the tools to get better, but I'm not the magic. Your effort, the injured athlete's effort, your attention, you're taking this seriously. That's the magic. That's the importance. You have all the magic that you need within you. You just need somebody to help kind of guide or utilize that magic. Competence is understanding like what to use and when, you know, like, you know, sometimes it's good to ignore people that, you know, that you have conflict with, that you're upset with and whatnot, versus other times that's not the right move. It is better to talk things out. It is better to like get stuff off your chest. So understanding what, you know, when to do what and why, that's kind of like the competence of it. And then the relatedness, like this is kind of like, you know, like dealing with this stuff is similar to dealing with something physical. remember that time that you were really nervous or really worried about that test, and then you did okay, and so you start kind of combining, like, look how this stuff, this thing you're going through is not that different from something else that you went through. And so if you apply the same effort, courage, or, whatever to this that you did there, then all of a sudden you'll feel more able to get through it, or you'll feel more motivated and incentivized to use the things that helped in those previous situations to get you through these current situations. And then just, kind of tying a bow on this whole discussion, it seems that one of the most powerful things that one of these individuals can experience is coaches, adults, giving them permission to seek out help, like telling them it's okay that you're not feeling okay. It's okay that you're struggling with this mentally, even though it's a physical thing. And that becomes really powerful in thinking about, yourself and things that can help. Along with that, I just want to tell one final story, is that I was talking with a parent about an athlete, and the discussion was talking about, like, maybe they need to like seek out mental health and some of the food decisions this person was making. And, we're starting to get concerned. And at first it was like, well, he needs to understand. I kind of said to the parent, he needs to, understand that, if these things aren't changing, then he needs to go to therapy. Well, I realized even during the conversation, like, that's a terrible way to put it, because essentially that is making therapy punishment, like working on yourself, talking to somebody mentally is, only for kids that misbehave or whatever, and that kind of stigmatizes the whole thing, kind of like what we were just talking about. Versus if you have a kid that is, like, not as fast as they should be, not as strong as they should be, doesn't jump as high as they should be, like, we don't have any hesitation in, people reaching out to somebody like me, to like help them with that. So it's not viewed like that same way, like, oh, hey, if you don't just jump higher in practice or run faster in the game, then I'm going to send you to, advancing athletics, and that'll teach you a lesson. No, it's like, you struggle with these things. That's no problem. Everybody struggles with something. Let's get you, in with somebody who can, help you with that. And then the athletes start to enjoy the process if I can create a good environment. It's like, yeah, I'm working on my jumping. I'm working on the thing that I'm not good at, my strength, my speed, my whatever, and I'm enjoying working on that. But we don't view that the same as mental health. And, so just thinking about that, thinking about how you encourage people, being open, when appropriate, about your own struggles, can kind of normalize it so that we stop thinking about this being like a sign of being broken.
Well, Doc, if anybody were to send someone to Advanced Athletics, or they were to go by their own consent, where could they find you or your company?
So you can reach out to me about any of the things we discussed today or any other week. Recover at advancingathletics.com. And then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Michele Iono, and Advancing Athletics on Facebook and Instagram, just by searching for us.
All right. And that is Fuel, Move, Recover with Dr. Michele Iono of Advancing Athletics. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mitch.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery. I need to talk about this World Series, man, because we didn't talk a lot of baseball last week, and I need to just talk about this game, this amazing game that we just saw that in between 2 teams that we did not expect to be in this World Series. The Texas Rangers, coming off a 100-loss season 2 years ago, in the World Series for the first time in a decade against a team that's in the World Series for the first time in over 2 decades, the Arizona Diamondbacks, who somehow, some way stole games 6 and 7 in Philadelphia to win their first pennant since 2001. So going into this matchup, I'm like, yes, it's not the same matchup as last year. It doesn't include the Astros. I'm good. Whoever wins, this is the first time since like 2016 that I'm like, I'm good with whoever wins. We're good. But I'd rather see Texas win, I guess, because Arizona's already won one, and Texas got off to an unbelievable start last night. Adolis Garcia, I don't know what's going on with him, but he's doing something. This man is on his. If this man can if they win this World Series, it's one of the great postseason runs we've ever seen. The man can't stop hitting home runs. He has teammates coming up in the clutch like Corey Seager, and it really is this unbelievable story right now that's getting me even more invested in this series than I already was, because I think I was a little more invested than the average person was going into it, because these teams are good. Don't get me wrong, but outside of Dallas and Phoenix, it wasn't the most engaging World Series for some people, I'm sure.
It's not. I like it for the most part because of the parity. This is the first World Series since 2017 without the Houston Astros or the Los Angeles Dodgers in it, right? So it's new to us, right? We are so used for the past 6 seasons of seeing one of those 2 teams, if not both of them, in the World Series at the same time. It also goes to prove that the objective is to just get in the playoffs. That's what it is. The Arizona Diamondbacks get in second to last day of the season.
Yeah.
And here they are. They're in the World Series. They have Texas on the ropes in game 1 with a 5-3 lead. And what's crazy is, I don't know if you saw this, but the last time the Arizona Diamondbacks were in the World Series was 2001 when they beat the New York Yankees in 7, I believe.
Yes.
That year, Randy Johnson had his infamous killing a bird incident.
Oh, that was that year. Okay.
That year. This year, the ace of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Zach Gallen, hit a bird while warming up in a game. The crazier part is the dates of all the World Series games this season are on the same exact dates of the World Series in 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And game 1 in 2001 was tied in the bottom of the 9th inning at Yankee Stadium by a home run, I believe. I cannot remember who it was. And then a walk-off home run was hit in extra innings by Derek Jeter.
Yeah, that was game 3. Game 1 was in Arizona.
Okay, game 3. Sorry.
That's okay. No, sorry. Excuse me. I'm wrong. Game 4. Excuse me.
And then last night, a 2-run home run's hit in the 9th inning to tie it. And then a walk-off home run is hit to win it for Texas. So things are lining up here. Maybe look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Is history going to repeat itself? I don't know. Too many things are aligning here, but I like it for the sense of you're getting to see some of these young baseball players. Corbin Carroll, who should, they haven't named it yet, but I mean, he's going to win Rookie of the Year in the National League this year.
Yeah.
Heim, Josh Jung. I mean, we know the Rangers have Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia. You're starting to learn about some of these other players the Rangers have now too, Mitch. And this is a team that I don't think is going to have any signs of slowing down in the near future because they have a lot of arms they've drafted in the farm system that they're hoping to get up here soon. This is a team I think that is going to be around for a while. And I don't want to say Houston's run's over, but it's the first time that they haven't been in the World Series for quite a while. And Dusty Baker retiring. So you wonder if maybe the Houston Astros reign of dominance for the most part is maybe coming back down to an even playing field. But the Diamondbacks at the same time, they were not the best team all year. The Rangers, Mitch, were one of the best teams in baseball all year. They had the lead in the American League West until the last week of the season. And they had never been more than 2 games behind the first place team in the American League West all year until August. This is a team that was respectable all year. This is a team that was going to be a tough out. And then Arizona on the flip side performs as well. Here they are. There is another stat out there that a team that defeats the Milwaukee Brewers in the playoffs in the first round has never not gone on to get to the World Series. And so yet again, here is that same trend. The Diamondbacks opened up on the road with Milwaukee, swept them in 3. And yet here we are, the Arizona Diamondbacks are in the World Series. So I think this is going to be an entertaining series. I do not see this series going into sweep. I don't know who I like. I think I like Texas's pitching more, I think. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I think it's buckle up time. I think this is going 6 or 7 for the World Series.
I hope so, because that'd be a really interesting matchup between 2 teams that again haven't won in a while. It'd be good, nice to see either team get a victory. I think they also said last night was the 12-year anniversary of David Freese's Game 6 heroics for the Cardinals against Texas, which they were 1 out away from getting that victory in the World Series. So now tonight's a little more of a better night for Texas fans. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they bring to the table and what Garcia continues to bring. By the way, as much as I really, really, really got excited when this happened, when you saw what happened in the 9th inning with a runner on second base and you saw Austin Hedges come up to the plate, didn't you just kind of know? He kind of knew. And I love Hedgie. Don't get me wrong, man. That man is a personality. That man is a good defensive catcher, a very good defensive catcher. When I saw his first 2 swings, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be a third one, isn't it? Sure enough. So we didn't get to see, because it was his first at bat in the entire postseason. I was like, oh, I want to see Hedges do something, but I'm like, but Garcia did it for me. And
did you
finally,
also see his reaction?
When he was on deck,
he was like, yes, I don't have to hit again. That's what
no, I mean, I don't know if he meant it I don't know if he was like that, but people meant it took it as that joke. But yeah, it was cool. That's the stuff I like from Hedges. I like to see him like get hyped up for that sort of stuff, and to see how he's bounced around the league this year, landing in Texas and getting the shot of a title is pretty cool. So yeah. Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going, disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
You need to remodel your bath? You need JR Bath Company. Trust in the quality of JR Bath. It's fast, it's safe, and it's affordable. Call today at 1-800-664-2284 or go to jrbath.com. Let's go over now to the last topic, which is, tomorrow's game in Seattle, Browns against the Seahawks. I'm not anticipating much for this game. We know Watson's not going to play. The Browns defense coming off a great game. Fantastic game. Willed that team to victory. Seattle's not bad. They're not a bad team. I don't think they're like world beaters or anything like we thought San Francisco was, but even San Francisco's kind of fallen off as of late. Seattle, though, I think they'll probably take this one, and I'm not going to be upset. It's 4-3 right now. The biggest focus right now has been more on Watson. Obviously, he's not recovered yet from that shoulder injury yet, and people continue to harp on the team for just trading for him in general, signing him to that contract, and then just seeing this whole thing play out. We talked about it before, where Deshaun Watson is essentially calling the shots with all the money he's guaranteed. But if this is the way we have to do it, then we have to do it. Although I did see reports that the Browns did not, and these are reports, they did not contact Washington for any inquiry on their current backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. If that's the case, would you have made that call, Mitch? Would you have made the decision to be like, hey, can we trade you a couple of late round picks for our guy back?
Absolutely. We know first off, and this is deeper than football, in my opinion. We know how much these guys loved Jacoby Brissett last year, right? We heard about how great of a teammate he is, how respected he was in there. We also know that he was fully capable of winning us football games. This is no shot at PJ Walker, right? He's
No.
Played well. I mean, Mitch, I mean, what if they win tomorrow and PJ Walker plays well again, then okay, fine. We roll with PJ Walker. It's just how much is it just, I don't want to say luck, but more magic. And is it sustainable? I heard a pretty damning stat yesterday that the Browns offensively have the worst quarterback statistically in the NFL.
I believe it.
Both completion percentage between Watson, turnovers, whatever it may be. That is, I can't believe I'm going to say this. That's a shot at Kevin Stefanski, but at the same time, Kevin Stefanski's team's 4-2. So that's also showing you that has he gotten it together? Possibly. Is the defense a huge part of that? And Jim Schwartz? Absolutely. Joe Woods was a reason that we didn't win. If we had Joe Woods still, we don't beat the Colts on Sunday. Let's be honest there. The way that team was moving the football, the defense for us scoring against Indianapolis the way it did, I would put in a call for Jacoby Brissett. There's a name out there, Mitch, that people keep bringing up, and it's just not realistic in my opinion. The Cleveland Browns are not going to trade for Kirk Cousins. They're not.
No.
Not going to. You would have to take on money that you can't really take on. Now, they did manipulate the cap before the season started, so there is money in there to be spent, but it just doesn't seem realistic. Jacoby Brissett, in my opinion, way more realistic. You think about other guys out there, people have floated around the name Colt McCoy. At that point, I'd rather stay with PJ Walker because I think he's a little more athletic. He's younger, obviously, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I put a lot of the blame on Stefanski against the Ravens, but at the same time, he is a rookie and he impressed in the preseason, Mitch, but he was also going against second and third teamers and guys who ended up getting cut by their respective teams.
Right.
It was a lot to ask of him. I think he was put in a horrible spot against Baltimore because everybody expected Deshaun Watson to play. And then like I said, I thought the coaching was horrendous in terms of being able to set him up to succeed in that game. And anybody that disagrees there, I would just ask you to go watch the game again. We'll see tomorrow. The defense, for the most part, is going to keep them in this game, I think. But at the same time, I will be livid if the Cleveland Browns do not do something, because if you let this defense this year go to waste, that is a fireable offense from everybody involved, because this defense is legit. Myles Garrett is playing the best football of his career right now. He just had the best game of his career last week against Indianapolis.
Yes, he did.
He is one of the favorites to win Defensive Player of the Year. Finally, right? We've talked about this all the time, but it's been Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt. It's been those three for the most part. Aaron Donald in there too. Those four guys have won the past how many Defensive Player of the Years, where now Myles Garrett is playing to his strengths. It's not, hey, you're lining up against the left tackle and you're going to work. It's, hey, Myles, go wherever you want. Stand up. Act like a linebacker. Like, that's playing to your player's strengths because he's so athletic. I mean, my gosh, he just hurdled a defender last week to block a field goal without using anybody to prop him up, which is now a penalty. You can't let that go to waste. You can't, because having a defense like this is one thing, but expecting it to be this great every single year is a whole other ballgame, because not only do the players have to be bought in, you also have to have luck involved too, Mitch, because you have to have guys healthy. And what have we seen the past number of years across the NFL is big time players and playmakers going down, and it hurts the team. So it's not a shot at PJ Walker. Nobody expected PJ Walker to be in this spot right now. Nobody. I just think they're going to have to make a move at quarterback, or maybe Deshaun is not as hurt as we thought. Maybe it's a mental thing. Who knows? But if he is going to go on the IR for 4 weeks, which it seems like there's a possibility, they thought it is indeed a need.
Look, here's what I'm going to say about Watson. Right now, he's dealing with a number of different things. Number one is a physical injury. And by the way, this is not like the Baker situation where, obviously it was Baker was struggling with his non-throwing shoulder. This is his throwing shoulder. This is what he needs in order to be accurate, to be able to get some power under his throws, stuff we didn't see against Indianapolis. It's also, I do think it's more so a mental issue as well than people are giving credit for. To me, it's one of two things. Number one, Watson is either facing the biggest case of guilt that we've ever seen from a professional football player that's still playing, or you're seeing the effects of 2 years worth of public pressure from a variety of different outlets, and people are going to say what they say. If that's the case, then, the guy has to essentially live with the fact that no matter what evidence or lack of evidence there is, people are never going to believe he didn't do what they think he did. But that's a big if, because of the things that people always say. How many accusations? I'm like, how many accusations? And you couldn't find one conviction, but that's not here nor there.
The other part to this too, Mitch, and I think it's a far lesser chance, but I do think that there's a chance. Every game Deshaun Watson's played for the Browns so far, he has been scrutinized afterwards by the media. And listen, most of it has been rightfully so. At the same time, this is somebody that didn't play for 2 years. So yes, there's going to be rust. And his best game he's played so far was against Tennessee, which I feel like nobody really talked about that outside of the Cleveland media.
Right.
Is this a mental thing for him, but also realizing, like, if I go out there and don't perform, I'm going to get ripped apart again. And he might not be able to deal with that anymore, Mitch.
I don't know.
Athletes are people too. Okay.
Right.
And people tend to forget that. And yes, I get it, right? They live this luxurious lifestyle, especially Deshaun Watson now getting $230 million guaranteed. But at the same time, at some point you have a breaking point. And is Deshaun Watson there? I don't know. It could be. I'm throwing out options here for what could actually be going on. He's hurt, right? And it sure looked like he was hurt last week when they brought him out against Indy. I mean, my gosh, if the Cleveland Browns don't take him out of that game, I don't think they win.
No, no, they don't. They don't.
I think he throws 3-4 interceptions. He was awful. At the same time, is there other reasoning? And we're not going to know because we're not in the head of Deshaun Watson. We're not with him every day.
Nope.
I just think there's definitely more than meets the eye, more than what we're being told and what we read about every day in terms of it's just his shoulder. But it was a great point by you. The difference between Baker and him when Baker had this injury was his non-throwing shoulder. This is your throwing shoulder. You don't have the velocity. You don't have the touch. If this is a baseball pitcher right now, Mitch, they are not pitching still. They're shut down.
No,
they are completely shut down right now. And you're also playing a violent sport where if he gets hit and lands in that shoulder wrong and aggravates it again, what are you going to do then? Because it's only going to get worse. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I don't feel good about this tomorrow. Jerome Ford's been banged up. We're not sure if he's going to play or not. Yes, Kareem Hunt's going to be there. What can he do? Can PJ Walker be a game manager? This Seahawks team, Tyler Lockett didn't practice a lot this week. Kenneth Walker didn't practice a lot this week. That would be big for this team to really say, hey, pick your poison. Are we stopping DK Metcalf for Jackson Smith and Jigba this week and get after Geno? The defense will keep him in this game. I just don't know if I can see the Browns winning this game tomorrow. I just feel like traveling across the country, playing in Seattle with the 12th man against a pretty good quarterback in Geno Smith. I don't know. This will be interesting.
Yeah, you're going to have this game, and then you have, Arizona next week. So at least you can kind of maybe at home next week, so you feel a little more comfortable the following game. And then, of course, you have back-to-back in division matchups that are going to be big coming up here. So we'll see what comes with that. So that's all we have for this episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We thank you so much for listening and or watching. Go follow us on everything we mentioned at the top of the show. Mitch, what's the fact of the day?
The fact of the day was actually what I told you earlier about Arizona and the World Series and the dates and everything. Just pretty crazy to really think about.
Very fascinating. All right. Thank you so much for listening or watching to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.